Listen, bro, you ever notice how some guys don't have to say a word, yet the whole energy in the room shifts when they walk in? They're not loud, they're not trying to prove anything, but somehow people notice them. And not just notice, feel them. There's this weird tension, almost like an unspoken challenge, but they're not even playing the game. See, most people operate on an invisible set of social rules. They compete, they compare, they seek approval, whether they realize it or not. That's just how society works. But then you have these men who don't engage in any of that. They don't try to fit in, they don't seek validation, and that throws people off. These are Sigma males, the silent disruptors of social dynamics. They move through life with an unshakable sense of self, completely unbothered by expectations. They don't follow trends. They don't submit to hierarchies. And most importantly, they don't explain themselves. And that right there, that is what makes them unsettling. Not because they're trying to be, not because they're looking for conflict, but because their very existence challenges the way most people understand social interactions. So why do Sigma males naturally intimidate others? Let's break it down. Point 1. He exists outside of the social equation. Listen, bro, most people don't even realize they're playing a game of status, validation, and comparison. Who's more successful? Who's more dominant? Who's winning in life? It's this constant, invisible competition, whether it's in a conversation, at work, or even in relationships. But then there's the Sigma male. And he's not playing. He doesn't measure himself against others. He doesn't care about social ranks, approval, or the usual power struggles. And that throws people off hard because think about it. When someone gives a compliment, they expect a reaction. When they try to assert dominance, they expect pushback or submission. But with the Sigma, nothing. He doesn't engage, he doesn't react. Compliments don't boost his ego, insults don't shake him, and power moves, they don't work. It's like trying to get under the skin of someone who's untouchable. And that's unsettling. Because people don't know what to do with him. They can't categorize him, they can't compete with him. It's like they're playing a game of chess and he's just sitting there, calm, unreadable, uninterested, while they scramble to make their next move. And the truth is, people need others to play along. They need those reactions, that validation, that sense of control. So when they meet someone who operates completely outside of that system, it forces them to confront just how much they rely on it. And for people who've spent their entire lives chasing approval, that realization, it's uncomfortable as hell. Point 2, his self-sufficiency feels like a challenge. You ever notice how most people constantly look for reassurance? Like they need other people to confirm who they are? They thrive on approval, attention, and validation, even if they don't realize it. They'll post something online just to see the likes roll in. They'll change their opinions based on who they're around. They'll go out of their way to be liked, even if it means being someone they're not. But then you meet someone different, someone who doesn't play that game. A Sigma male doesn't need anyone's validation. He doesn't shrink to fit into a group, and he doesn't chase approval. He's not rude or antisocial. He just doesn't need constant reassurance to feel whole. And that makes people uncomfortable, because deep down, most people do need it. They rely on others to tell them they're enough, that they matter. So when they meet someone who's completely self-sufficient, it's like holding up a mirror to their own insecurities. It makes them question why they crave approval so much. And let's be real, most people don't like facing that truth. It's easier to surround themselves with people just like them, people who need the same validation. But a Sigma male, he forces them to confront something they'd rather ignore. And that's why his self-sufficiency feels like a challenge. Point 3, he disrupts social power structures. All right, imagine this. You walk into a room and without even thinking about it, you can tell who's in charge. There's always that one guy who talks the loudest, takes up the most space, the one who expects people to defer to him. Then there are the people who follow, laughing at his jokes, agreeing with whatever he says, playing their roles like they're in some unspoken social script. Now, imagine someone else walks in, but this guy, he's different. He's not loud. He's not looking for attention. He's not playing along with the usual hierarchy. He doesn't challenge the alpha, but he also doesn't submit. He just exists, calm, detached, completely unbothered by the entire dynamic playing out around him. And you know what happens? It throws everyone off. The alpha, who's used to either being admired or challenged, doesn't know what to make of him. He expects either submission or competition, but this guy gives neither. The followers feel weird too because the usual rhythm of social interaction isn't working on him. It's like he's immune to the invisible rules everyone else unconsciously follows. This is why a Sigma male disrupts power structures without even trying. His presence alone is enough to make people uneasy, not because he's aggressive or dominant, but because he doesn't need the validation that everyone else secretly depends on. He's outside the system, and that makes people question the system itself. It's like gravity suddenly stops working. People have been operating under this invisible force their whole lives, and suddenly someone shows up who isn't affected by it. That kind of thing changes the whole environment. And whether people realize it or not, it makes them uncomfortable because deep down, they're wondering, why doesn't this guy need the same things I do? And what does that say about me? Point 4, he's impossible to manipulate. All right, imagine this. You ever notice how a lot of conversations aren't as straightforward as they seem? Like people aren't just talking, they're nudging, suggesting, implying. Sometimes it's subtle, like a guilt trip wrapped in a compliment. Other times it's more obvious, intimidation, social pressure, little mind games meant to get a reaction. Most people fall into these traps without even realizing it. They get pulled into arguments they never wanted to have, say yes to things they don't really want to do, or feel bad for something they shouldn't even feel guilty about. But a Sigma male, he doesn't play that game. He sees manipulation for what it is, the second it starts. And instead of reacting, instead of getting defensive or playing along, he just opts out. He won't argue, he won't explain himself. If something doesn't align with his principles or interests, he simply walks away without drama, without hesitation. And that drives manipulators insane because their usual tactics don't work. They try to guilt trip him, he doesn't care. They try to intimidate him, he doesn't flinch. They try to push his emotional buttons, he doesn't give them the satisfaction. It's like they're throwing punches at a ghost. Imagine trying to play chess with someone who refuses to sit at the board. You can make all the moves you want, but it doesn't matter because he's not even in the game. And for people who thrive on control, that's terrifying. Because if they can't manipulate him, they have no power over him. Point 5, his ability to disappear is unsettling. How most people can't just leave, they have to explain, to justify, to make sure everyone understands why they're walking away. They want closure, they want validation, they want to make a statement. But Sigma male, he doesn't do that. If something isn't serving him, whether it's a toxic relationship, a dead-end job, or even just a conversation that's going nowhere, he doesn't fight, he doesn't plead, he doesn't argue, he just vanishes. And that terrifies people because we're used to having some kind of leverage over others. Maybe it's guilt, maybe it's obligation, maybe it's the comfort of knowing someone needs us. But when you meet someone who isn't bound by any of that, who can walk away without hesitation, you realize just how fragile control really is. There's no second chance to manipulate him, no way to reel him back in. He doesn't need closure, he doesn't need permission, and he definitely doesn't need you to understand his decision. When he's done, he's done. And that forces people to confront something uncomfortable. How much of their power over others is built on dependency? Because if you can't make someone need you, then you have no power over them at all. The intimidation factor of a Sigma male isn't about aggression, dominance, or arrogance. It's about self-mastery. When you don't seek validation, when you don't play social games, when you exist entirely in your own space without needing permission, people don't know how to react. And in a world where people fear what they can't understand, that kind of presence is powerful. If this resonated with you, let me know in the comments. And if you want more deep dive content like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay strong, stay independent, and keep moving forward.